Chapter 51 A Wild Rodeo Ride, R.18, Chapter Preview. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Kai thrust his entire cock inside her in one swift motion. Ah, Watanabe moaned loudly as she felt every inch of his cock due to her increased sensitivity. That if what Kai had said was true, then she would experience her most memorable moment ever. He started expertly moving his body as her whole body shuddered below him. The bed trembled as he increased his speed. The friction caused by this was enough to light a fire, and by that, Kai meant real fire. However, her body didn't burst into flames. Though, her insides were heating up in a way she had never experienced. She then stared at his beautiful face, no visible signs of strain as he fucked her. Suddenly, she felt guilty about making him do all the work. She put a hand on his shoulder and he stopped. "Is something wrong?" Kai asked in a serious voice, his mind wondering whether he did unconsciously hurt her. "No, nothing's wrong. I just feel guilty about making you do all the hard work whereas I enjoy it," she said in a sad voice and lifted her body, thus removing his dick from her hole. "So now, I am the one who is going to the work whereas you will be the one watching it," she said with a grin and pushed him down. Watanabe slowly positioned herself above his dick. She slowly started lowering her body, letting the head enter her cave. She clenched her teeth to stifle a moan and continued lowering herself until it reached the end of her cave. She firmly sat there and unclenched her teeth, finally letting herself moan. "Ah, dot. Oh," she was moaning by just sitting on it. Whereas Kai admired her body from the top to the bottom. Her luscious waist-length light blue hair, her yellow split-pupil eyes, her seducingly delicious lips, her bare throat. Coming below, her pale breasts with their aroused nipples, her flat stomach, her long slim legs, and between them, her wonderful pussy and also her huge ass. The upper realms had a word for such figures who appeared in their late 20s. They were known as MILFs. A mother I'd like to fuck, if you were looking for the full form. Yeah, I know that usually MILFs are in their mid to late 30s or sometimes early 40s, but still, this is the cultivation world and well, new rules. And just so you know, I changed her purple hair to light blue hair." She then started moving at a fast speed. Kai grabbed hold of her waist to steady her as she started increasing her speed. Her breasts flailed in the air as she rode Kai's dick. The huge breasts bouncing up and down as she moved. He used his right hand to steady her as his left hand started groping her breasts. Her expression indicated she liked it and continued to ride him as liquid started to drench out of her hole. "Let's go, baby," she shouted as though she was riding a horse, but in reality, Kai's dick was much better than a horse. Watanabe started to get wilder as she increased her pace even more. Her ass thumped on his skin as she moved and he felt the pressure spread throughout his body. He grabbed hold of her ass as he steadied her and pushed her down on his dick. He then rolled her below him while moving his body once and making her come. "Ah," she moaned in pleasure as she squirted a large amount of yin chi and she felt that her stock had run out of it. Kai released his yang chi inside her and removed his cock from her. She was really tired and lay there on the bed, completely naked. "I have to admit, that was fun," she said, her voice full of excitement. "Stick with me and you will experience this daily," Kai said as he chuckled lightly. Both of them then cultivated for a while before Kai stood up and wore his clothes. He kissed Watanabe lightly before snapping his fingers to clean her room. He then left the room and went back to Riang's room, only to find out that it was empty. Where could she be? He wondered for a minute before he decided to use his spiritual sense to find her. He saw that Riang was standing near the core court as if she was about to visit someone there. Kai teleported and stepped beside her with a boo. She jumped suddenly as she heard his voice. When she realized who the voice belonged to, her face went red as Kai laughed. "Next time warn me before you decide to pop up beside me," she said with a cute frown, if you understand what he meant. Who are you visiting here? He asked in a casual voice. Her face contracted as she glanced at the houses in the inner court, each comprising of 7 big rooms. I am here to clean up these houses, she said, no whispered as Kai had to strain hard to hear what she was saying. Oh that, well here, he said as he snapped his fingers. Every single house except for Mia and Yui's house has been cleaned, he said with a shrug as Riang's jaw dropped down. Oh, and by the way, I am sure that none of those disciples have cultivated with anyone recently, as no male member, except for me and Elder Min, is present here, he added as an afterthought. That's one of the many things I wanted to talk about, Riang said in a nervous voice. Don't worry. I am going out to clear a mission, and when I will return, I will cultivate with every single one of them, Kai reassured her as she gasped in shock. Can you do something like that? Can you really cultivate with 500 disciples? She asked in a dumbstruck voice. Kai just smiled and nodded before vanishing as he left behind a dumbfounded Riang. He appeared in the mission hall and grabbed a random mission from the Hell Spirit Realm mission section. Elder Min was the only elder present there, and he quickly signed it. In reality, his real goal was to go and check on his cheerleading squad perhaps and bring them back to his personal playgroup, Ahem sect. As he teleported himself to the Ryazu city, he glanced at the mission in his hand. Surprisingly, he knew the person who submitted this mission. #Personal mission objective. Disciple Kai has to go and greet Madame Tsu. The details are classified and you will be told about it later on. Below it, a picture of Tsu was taped. This was an even more vulgar picture than the last one. She was wearing robes, but those were for show as they hung open, letting you see her moon-white panties and bra. She never gives up. Kai sighed as he decided to first check on his cheerleading squad before going to meet her. He entered the cave and emerged in the hall where he had created the special formation for them. Suddenly, a group of 35 women gasped at the same time as they saw him. After that, they simultaneously ran and hugged him, all of them trying to touch his body. How are you all? He asked with a smile as he looked at them, well-fed and newly clothed. They had kept the place clean and had even created some new furniture by using clothes from his formation and wood from the forest. All of them told him about how happy they were, thanks to him. He smiled and patted their heads before telling them he would come back in a few hours. He would first go and greet Tsu before asking them whether they want to join the sect or not. He bid his farewell to them before appearing outside Tsu's house. He knocked on the door and she opened it. Surprisingly, she was wearing a white dress that was so thin that you could see her underwear below it. Her lips curled up seductively as she glanced at his clothes, his normal set with the black coat. Come inside. She moved inside as Kai slowly stepped in. Since last time, he had been kicked out of the house before he could see anything. He was surprised to see her house. The walls were entirely white and the furniture was minimum. The furniture was also white and pretty much everything except her clothes, as it looked like, was white. Surprisingly, a poster of a naked woman standing with her legs wide apart was taped on a wall. Do you like my house? She said suddenly, and Kai narrowed his eyes as he carefully glanced at her dress. The neckline was so low that you could practically see her breasts, and the bra was only for show as she wore it in a way that let him see her nipples through her thin dress. As if sensing his gaze on her, her smile grew wider and she crossed her arms beneath her breasts, pushing them up as they bounced. Is she trying to seduce me? Kai wondered with an amused smile on his face which Tsu thought indicated her was interested in her. Men are such simple creatures. Show them a little skin and have sex with them and they will give you anything you want. She thought with a silent laugh, blaming Kai's foolishness. But little did she know that she was standing in front of the master seducer. Kai's special mind games would now begin. Tsu will now learn that you should never, ever in your life, try to seduce Kai for your personal greed. Chapter 52 You are about 100 millenniums too young to seduce me. chapter preview, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Do you want to know why I called you? Sue asked with a sly grin as her hands started shaking her breasts. Sue believed that she had Kai under her control, but little did she know that Kai was very far away from her reach. Perhaps you want to seduce me. Kai said with a grin that matched Sue's grin. She was startled for a second before she regained her composure. He is quite smart. Sue thought with a frown, but it quickly vanished, instead replaced by one of her seducing smiles. Ah, do you want to be seduced by me? Sue said in a cute voice and brought her fingers to her lips. She was an ex-disciple of the Blue Moon sect and had learned some amazing seducing skills. Kai opened his mouth and laughed wholeheartedly and looked at Sue with amusement. You are about 100 millenniums too young to seduce me. Kai said with a mischievous grin. Now you might ask, isn't he having sex with many women who are too young to be compared with him? In reality, he was the one seducing them and not the other way around, and also, as far as the world is concerned, Kai was 19, thanks to his appearance. But Sue didn't understand what he was saying. 100 millenniums. Too young. What was he talking about? Sue looked at him with a frown. You are not a real dual cultivator. In reality, you are just someone who only thinks about her own cultivation. Kai suddenly said, his voice completely serious, all traces of amusement gone. Isn't everyone like that? Sue asked in a shaken voice. Dual cultivation was supposed to be an art of happiness and pleasure. But throughout the flow of time, it became more and more corrupted. People started *ping to benefit their cultivation, dual cultivation sects opened brothels to increase their cultivation, and sometimes people started seeing someone and pretended to be in love with them so that they could earn benefits from it. Kai's words contained wisdom. The wisdom that was accumulated over many million years of living. But why did people become so greedy? Why did they forget about the true meaning behind dual cultivation? Kai asked in a slow, deadly voice, and he started walking towards Sue, one step with every word. Sue gulped nervously, and every instinct in her body was telling her to run. But she knew that running would do no good. Even while knowing that, she was still terrified and took a step back involuntarily as though she had lost control of herself. Perhaps they wanted to become the strongest or the greatest, or perhaps they wanted fame, wealth, and girls. But in the end, they all succumbed trying to want that, and the few who survived lived a life they could never imagine. Once you accept that you are greedy, your greed will consume you until nothing is left. You will chase behind impossible goals, no matter what it costs, and in the end, you will rot away. He said slowly as Sue's body pressed against a wall. She was terrified beyond her imagination and she wanted to scream, but unfortunately, no sound came out. Kai raised his right hand and pushed her chin up so that she was staring directly into his eyes. The next time you think about doing something because of your greed, remember what I said. And then, I might consider cultivating with you. He slowly said and stepped back. Sue whimpered in fear and watched Kai leave her house. She stood up and calmed her breathing. Sue crashed down on her bed, her mind swirling with thoughts. She continued to replay his words in her head until she fell asleep. As for Kai, he appeared back at the stronghold. His squad was cleaning the place when they saw him and immediately dropped whatever they were holding. I am here to ask you about something. I have become the sect master of the Blue Moon sect and I want you all to come to the sect. Kai got straight to the point and many of them gasped. Didn't that used to be a dual cultivation sect? One of them asked, her voice full of uncertainty. However, Kai smiled at them. I am originally a dual cultivator, however, I won't ask you to cultivate in the sect. You can live there, eat there, and you can make new friends. I will personally introduce you to some good people I know. But in the end, it's your decision to make. Kai said as he went silent. He looked at their expressions, wearing between disbelief, shock, anger, and perhaps a little longing to see the outer world. They came together as one and all of them nodded, which made Kai smile. He held out his hand, everyone held on to it. He teleported them to the entrance of the sect. He then teleported to where Riang was and brought her back with him. Did you just pick up a harem? Riang asked in confusion as she glanced at the group of 35 women. No, they are my cheerleading squad. Kai said with a straight face. You're what? Riang asked again as she wasn't sure about what she had heard. My cheerleading squad. Kai repeated and she shook her head. Anyways, they are going to stay at the sect as I don't know, the sect's personal cheerleading squad. He looked at them, asking for their opinions. We will clean the sect in exchange for staying here. One of them said and the others nodded. No, I promised you that I will let you enter the sect without asking for anything. Kai denied it, but all of them shook their heads. You did so much for us and we couldn't do anything to thank you. One of them said. And now, you are the master of this sect and we have found a way to repay you. Another said. We will keep this sect clean and spotless and will repay our debt to you. Another person said and they all smiled. In the end, Kai couldn't refuse them and he sighed in defeat. All the disciples are supposed to clean their own houses or they will be banned from dual cultivation for 5 months. But nobody cleans the halls and other places. I will be glad, you if you would do that. Riang said with a smile and let them enter the sect. They stayed true to their word and immediately started cleaning. Kai was about to go away when Riang suddenly pulled him away in a corner where no one was looking at her. We are in a grave situation. The Wu family has found out about Wu Tan's dead and they are asking for your head as compensation. And if they didn't receive it by the next week, they will attack the sect. She said with a worried expression. Wu Tan was the sect's supposed genius that Kai had killed and the sect had hidden the truth about his death from his family. How much influence do they wield? Kai asked. They are one of the 4 great families of the Western continent. They have influence in the West region. The Lu family is the great family in the East, the Kuraha family in the North, and the Duramoto family in the South. And the Xian family rules the continent. She explained to Kai. We have the ancestor on our side so I don't think they would attack us openly. Perhaps an assassination. I cannot put anyone's life in danger so maybe I should kill them. He said while pondering and Riang gasped. Easy there, I was just joking. He said with a grin as Riang calmed down. So what will you do? She asked, her face still full of worry. I will go and talk to them. He said with a grin and vanished. Riang facepalmed and wondered about what will happen during the talk. Kai didn't know where the Wu family lived so instead, he went back to the stronghold. He removed the formations present there and burned the place to ashes that were scattered away by the wind, thus removing any proof of its existence. He then went to Ryazu city and asked a few people about where the Wu family lived. They reluctantly told him that they lived far out in the west near a huge lake. With the location known to him, Kai instantly teleported himself away to the lake and stared at the giant palace beside it. It was nothing compared to the royal palace of the Xian family, but still, it was quite formidable. Guards at the Hell Spirit realm were circling around the palace, their expressions fully alert. They thought that no one could enter the Wu family house without permission. They could not be any more wrong. Kai wanted them to know about his presence so he would enter the house with a bang. And he meant a literal bang. Chapter 53 Welcome to Your Death, Chapter Preview. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Kai casually walked up to the palace. When the guards saw him, he waved his hands. One of them frowned and stepped forward to meet him, or in other words, to capture him for trespassing on the property of the Wu family. Who are you and what is your business with the Wu family? The guard asked Kai and released his 7th stage Hell Spirit realm cultivation. Oh, I am the sect master of the Blue Moon sect and I killed Wu Tan. Kai said with a grin before moving at an impossible speed. He knocked the guard unconscious by hitting him in the neck. Kai knocked out all the guards before entering the palace. The Wu family was certainly one of the 5 great families, as displays of their wealth covered the entire palace. The entire floor was covered with rug mats and many antiques were kept on display. Many servants and maids were moving throughout the palace to supplement the Wu family members. They didn't even bat an eye at Kai's arrival, as they thought that the guards must have let him in. They swiftly avoided Kai whenever he came in front of them because they thought he was someone important. He released his spiritual sense in the entire palace and found out that the highest level of cultivation present here was someone at the 7th stage of the heaven spirit realm, and the second highest level of cultivation present was someone at the 4th stage of the same realm. The first cultivation must have belonged to the ancestor and the second to the head of the Wu family. Now Kai had to choose where he wanted to go. The ancestor was at the top of the palace and he was alone, whereas the family head was somewhere in a huge hall with numerous cultivators surrounding him. Kai decided to teleport away to the hall to meet the family head, and he landed on top of a table full of food. Me damn it. He cursed loudly, using his name instead of God because he himself was a god, or rather, had been a god before the whole crashing on the planet thing. Who the hell are you? A woman shouted and released her 4th stage heaven spirit realm cultivation, indicating that she was the family head of the Wu family. Within mere minutes, an overbearing aura dominated the air as the ancestor revealed his presence. I gotta say, you are ballsy enough to barge in like that. The ancestor sounded as though he was impressed. Well, my name is Kai and I am the sect master of the Blue Moon sect. I am the one who killed Wu Tan. Kai casually introduced himself and smiled at the expressions of the people in front of him. Some were shocked, some faces were full of disbelief, whereas some smiled in amusement. He was a trashy pervert, and if I might say, you did us a favor. But by doing that, you went against our family, and we have to set an example to show that we are one of the 5 great families. The ancestor said in a regretful voice before he took out a sword. This sword was a low-tier divine-grade treasure. Kai raised his eyes at the ancestor, who foolishly swung his sword at Kai. However, when the sword came in contact with Kai's body, it shattered. What were you expecting? That my body would be cut down into 2 halves. Sorry that what you imagined didn't happen. Kai said with a grin as he looked at the shocked expressions of the people surrounding him. Well, I was here to negotiate with you and perhaps give you 1,000,000 spirit stones and perhaps an imperial-grade cultivation technique, but since you decided to kill me, I will destroy the thing that you love the most. He said as he snapped his fingers. Everyone inside the palace, including Kai, were teleported outside the palace. He then took out a random sword from his pendant before glancing at the palace. Demon sword art, blood fall. Kai said, and he threw the sword at the palace. Black flames started revolving around the sword and a tornado was created around it. The sword pierced through the bottom of the palace before the entire palace caught fire. Within mere minutes, the entire place burned down to nothing. There was nothing left here to prove that a huge palace stood here. Not even ashes were left, as Kai's flames left behind nothing. Next time you decide to do anything, remember that I will kill you. Kai gave them a warning before he disappeared back to the Blue Moon sect, leaving behind a gaping Wu family. Now I just have to wait. Kai yawned as he stretched his body. If what he thought was correct, then the Wu family would arrive at the Blue Moon sect in about 3 days, asking for justice or something along those lines. And that's when his master plan would begin. But for now, he decided to accept the duties of a sect master. Riang, I have something to show you. Kai knocked on Riang's door and she stepped outside with her eyebrows raised. Come and meet the new core disciples of our sect. He said with a smile and led a confused-looking Riang to the core court. Nezuko and the other 6 inner court girls Kai cultivated with gained a massive boost to their cultivation. All of them reached the 4th stage of the Hell Spirit Realm and were standing there with glowing expressions. I don't understand. Aren't they inner court disciples at the Sky Spirit Realm? Since no one in the mortal cultivation realm had the real spiritual sense, Riang couldn't sense their cultivation. Just go ahead and see their cultivation. Kai said in a light tone and stepped aside to let her touch then. When she touched Nezuko and used her spiritual energy to check her cultivation, she was surprised, no, rather, she was shocked. She checked the cultivation of all 7 girls 2 times and her mouth was hanging open. How can all of them be at the 3rd stage of Hell Spirit Realm? She asked Kai. They cultivated with me. Kai simply said as though that answer resolved everything. In a way, it did resolve everything as Riang had personally enjoyed Kai's rod so she knew what he was talking about. Meet the new core disciples of our sect. He said with a proud expression and took out 7 core disciple robes and gave it to them. They happily received the robes and thanked Kai. For the next 3 days, he didn't cultivate with anyone. He just casually spent his time with many beauties. He went to check on Kiana's health and she was perfectly fine. Well, still she kind of wanted to cultivate with him and when Kai denied it, she settled for a blowjob. So after that, he went to meet Watanabe who was about to leave the sect to return to the royal family palace, and asked her to stay for another week. She happily nodded and said that she will stay. After that, he finally went to see Mia and he was happy to have her back to full power with her memories. All of my memories have recovered and I am at full strength, well the full strength of a heaven spirit realm cultivator. Mia said while she sat in her bed. As for Kai, he was calmly hovering in the air. Mia, something is about to happen and after it happens, will you come with me to check the space gate that was created? Kai asked her. She just nodded and they spent the rest of their time remembering about old memories. And like that, time passed. Just like Kai had said, the Wu family came with their full army, hoping to destroy the Blue Moon sect. But surprisingly, they were not the only ones who came to attack the sect. Sect master of the Blue Moon sect, show your face. A person at the 4th stage of Heaven Spirit Realm shouted. He was wearing red robes and had a mustache on his face, a sense of déjà vu coming from him. The 4 great sects, except the Blue Moon sect, were powerful like the 5 great families. But unlike the families, they didn't have any strong ancestors to protect them. This was the reason that the 5 great families were more powerful than the sections. Another thing that was different was that the Xian family was the vessel for the White Tiger spirit and that was the major reason that they ruled the continent and had such power. Well. Look who it is, the sect master of the Red Flower sect. Kai pointed at the man. The Red Flower sect was the sect that collaborated with Junjun to destroy the Blue Moon sect and slave the disciples and sect elders who were still loyal. However, they were the ones who were destroyed, thanks to Kai. Now, their sect master was here to obtain his revenge. The ancestor and head of the Wu family. He pointed to a woman and an old-looking man as they were also here to obtain their revenge as Kai had destroyed their home. The reason being that they wanted his head or they would have destroyed the Blue Moon sect. Once again, their home was destroyed instead of the sect. And your armies. He completed his sentence and gestured at the tens of thousands of cultivators standing behind them who were brought here to experience death. Well, that's what Kai thought. We want. The ancestor started to say but was cut off by Kai's words. Yeah, I know you want revenge and blah, blah, blah. But that's not what I want. Kai said with a sly grin. Didn't I warn you that I will kill you the next time I see you? Well, welcome to your death. He said with a grin and disappeared. He appeared a second later and a person was standing beside him. Everyone gasped and they saw her as every existence on the western continent knew about her. It was ancestor Watanabe Xian. They looked at her in fear and wondered why they were here. The reason for this was that Watanabe had a very dangerous expression on her face as though she wanted to kill someone and she might as well do it. Kai's words contained the truth, all of them will die here. Now that would either be by his hands or Watanabe's. But who cares about the minor details? It's the major picture that was more dangerous. Chapter 54 Lightning Dragon, Chapter Preview. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ancestor Xian, what are you doing here? The ancestor of the Wu family asked Watanabe. The ancestors of the four great families and the royal Xian family were well associated with each other. That's why the ancestor of the Wu family knew Watanabe. Oh, I am staying here to enjoy this sect's hospitality, since the Red Flower sect decided to strike them. Watanabe glared at the sect master of the Red Flower sect and released her third stage Imperial Spirit Realm cultivation. Thanks to Kai, it had increased from the second stage to the third stage. The sect master shuddered, trying to think up an excuse so that he would be able to avoid her wrath. But Watanabe didn't stop speaking. And you even helped in the kidnapping of my granddaughter, smuggled her off to the southern continent, and then you bound her soul to your second in command. Now, how would you explain that? She asked in a sharp tone. Kai had uncovered how Kiana was smuggled away and how her soul was bound to the previous mustache dude. In reality, the Red Flower sect had used the space gate to hide Kiana and the previous mustache dude on the southern continent. After her soul was completely bound to the mustache dude, they came back here and forced her to join the Blue Moon sect. How do you know that? The sect master cowered even further when he Watanabe's words. I will bring her here. Kai whispered to Watanabe before disappearing. He reappeared with Kiana standing beside him, her yellow split-dot pupil eyes gleaming in the sunlight. Her appearance caused a chain reaction of shock from the gathered cultivators. The Wu family and their army stared at the Red Flower sect and distanced themselves. Do you want to kill them painfully? Kai asked as both Kiana and Watanabe nodded. Well, then I will help you. He said and waved his hands at the sky. Dark clouds appeared in the sky and thunder struck. He took out a purple scroll and threw it at the clouds. Watanabe and Kiana thought that it was a treasure. But in reality, it was just a normal scroll that was empty. Kai used this scroll as a fake treasure so that everyone could believe that he had many treasures. Golden lightning struck the scroll as it slowly started descending. It settled down on Kai's hands and the golden lightning went inside him. He touched Watanabe and Kiana's forehead with his fingers and their eyes started glowing. The golden lightning traveled inside their bodies, stirring their natural potential at controlling lightning, thanks to them being the descendants of the white tiger. You can do whatever you want. Kai said and stepped back as he saw the two women step forward. Everyone else was terrified of what they saw. They shuddered when they saw that Watanabe and Kiana's eyes were glowing brightly. Both of them stepped forward and raised their hands. Golden lightning traveled throughout their bodies and focused itself on their hands. They released the energy towards the sky and the lightning went straight into the clouds. The dark clouds rumbled loudly before they parted slowly. A deafening roar was heard as a golden dragon's head emerged from the clouds. Its entire body was made from lightning and it slowly started descending. It was an eastern dragon as its body appeared in front of them. And that's when the screams started. Members of the Red Flower sect started trampling each other in order to escape as they knew that the dragon was coming for them. As for the Wu family, they remained rooted to their spots as they glanced at the dragon made from lightning. They wanted to speak and they wanted to move. But their bodies wouldn't allow it as their fear had taken control over them. The dragon released another deafening roar as its body struck at the Red Flower sect members. Their bodies were electrocuted and they were roasted to death. Golden sparks flew in the air as the dragon massacred every single member of the Red Flower sect. It then disappeared, leaving behind detached body parts, bodies blackened beyond recognition, and the terrified Wu family. Watanabe and Kiana collapsed and Kai skillfully caught them. He had a lifetime's worth of experience in catching falling beauties. He gently put their unconscious bodies on the ground before snapping his fingers. About 3,000 Red Flower sect disciples rose from the dead and everyone was stupefied by this. Ta-da, all of you are back from the dead. Kai said in a game announcer voice. All of you are the cultivators who didn't know about the sect master's plan. You can go back and re-establish your sect. He said with a smile as they bowed down to him. He then snapped his fingers and teleported them back to their sect. After that, he slowly touched the ground with his hands and the remaining bodies disappeared. In their place, red flowers started to bloom and the fragrance of blood filled the air. Do you want to fight me? Kai asked and cocked an eyebrow in the direction of the Wu family. The ancestor and the family head stared at each other, both reaching a silent agreement. They stepped forward and lightly bowed to him. We will not dare to do such a thing. Please don't kill us. The family head said in a nervous voice which made Kai laugh. Well, I don't have any problem with you till the time you decide not to disturb me. He said and looked at both of them. They nodded before returning back to stand with the rest of their family. Kai teleported them back to their residence, or in other words, where their residence was before he had burnt it. He then stretched out his body and stared at the field full of red flowers. He teleported himself, Kiana, and Watanabe away to his house as he had decided to live in a core disciple house rather than living on the second floor. He gently put their bodies on the bed before he touched their foreheads and their eyes flew awake. They looked at Kai before standing. I think you want to go back to your home. Kai suddenly said and glanced at Watanabe. She nodded slightly before looking at Kiana. She gave her an encouraging nod before she gently pushed her forward. But before Kiana could speak anything, Kai said what she wanted to say. You want to go with her and meet your father, who is the ruler of the continent, meaning that you are a princess. You should meet your whole family and I will come to see you later on. He said with a smile before he extended his hand. Watanabe and Kiana took hold of it and the three of them disappeared. They appeared in front of the Xian family castle and Kai bid his farewell to them before teleporting back to the sect. He then went to Mia's house and entered it. She was cultivating when she heard him enter her house. Look who decided to show up. She said sarcastically as Kai laughed. Mia, are you ready to come with me to see that space gate and find that traitor who sold that soul-controlling pill to the Red Flower sect? Kai asked, his voice completely serious. Mia nodded and extended her hand. Kai took hold of it and both of them appeared in Riang's room. Since Riang was now used to Kai popping in front of her, she didn't scream. She just raised her eyebrows at him and Mia. We are going on a secret mission. Not a single soul should know about it. If someone asks about me, just tell them that I am in secluded cultivation. Kai quickly said and both of them disappeared before Riang could ask anything. Riang just shook her head in dismay and released a sigh. Who knows where he is going? She thought and released another sigh. As for Kai and Mia, they appeared in Ryazu City, the place where he had deflowered Mia for the second time. Why are we here? Mia asked in confusion as she saw the city. For no reason. I am about to do a 2,000-kilometer jump, so you should prepare your mind. Kai said to her as he teleported them away. They appeared on the edge of the western continent as the huge sea was in front of them. Kai stumbled for a minute before he straightened himself. ENV, there is a cloaking formation over there. The traitor must be hiding there. He said and pointed towards the highest spot on the land, about 500 meters away from their current location. Your abilities never waver, do they? Mai said and chuckled lightly before they started walking towards the spot. What will you do if it's Rizia? Mia suddenly asked as they were walking. If it's her, then I am going to rescue her and torture the people who captured her. Kai said in a dangerous voice and Mia didn't speak anything else. As soon as the spot, another formation activated, but before anything could happen, Kai touched the formation and it vanished. A warning formation, in case someone tries to enter here. Now we know that we are at the right place. Kai chuckled lightly as he dismantled the cloaking formation. A house made from stone appeared in front of them. Here goes whatever that goes. Kai said as he turned the doorknob to open the door. Chapter 55 The Darkness, Chapter Preview. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The correct phrase is "here goes nothing." Mia corrected Kai as the door swung open. "I make my own dialogues," he retorted as they stepped inside. "Well, no formations, no traps. This dude is quite sure that nobody could beat his alarm system," Kai said as he glanced around the place. It looked as though the dude was quite rich. Royal carpets were spread out on a wooden floor. 3 king-size beds with velvet sheets were placed in different positions. Antiques decorated the walls and a delicious smell was coming from the kitchen. "It looks as though he found out about us and decided to run away." Mia sighed and kicked a couch. "Nah, he is still here," Kai said as smiled at the door. "Where do you think you are going?" He moved at an impossible speed and caught something in the air. Kai snapped his fingers and a man came into view. He opened his mouth as a squeal was heard. His eyes were horror-struck and he was tongue-tied. He tried to break free from Kai's grip but it was useless. An invisibility pill. One that was at low quality. Kai said thoughtfully before staring into the man's eyes. "I just need your memories. And then, you will be on your way to the afterlife." He touched the man's forehead and the man's eyes started glowing. He writhed in pain and tried to break free from Kai's grip but it was a futile attempt. The man's eyes started burning and that's when he let go of his body. His eyes were completely burned but he was still alive. The man screamed and tried to bolt out of the door. But no sooner had he taken his first step, Kai snapped his fingers, thus turning the man into dust. "Quickly give me your hand," he asked as he extended his hand towards Mia who took hold of it without hesitation. Their eyes rolled back and both Kai and Mia fell on the floor. No sound was heard as Kai and Mia were unconscious. "Where are we?" Mia asked as she glanced around her. She and Kai were standing in a place that looked boundless. Nothing was here, except for darkness that stretched on for kilometers. Mia couldn't see the end of it so she just glanced at Kai. "This is the darkness. Every living thing, whether they are a human, a demon, a beast, or anything that exists, comes here after they are dead." Kai explained as he touched the darkness with his hands. "Whatever that exists, always return to the darkness." Immortality. There is no such thing as true immortality. People don't die when they are killed. They die when nobody remembers them. This is where they come after that. Kai added and stretched out his hands. The darkness moved along his body swiftly before settling down on his right shoulder. It took a blob-like shape and peacefully slept in his shoulder. Was that a cosmic mystery you just unraveled?" Mia asked and shuddered as she realized the true meaning of Kai's words. "I have unraveled every single mystery in this universe, whether it's about how the world was created or why people sing bathroom songs. But I don't think I should tell you about that." He took a while before answering and started walking. If Kai told Mia about the truth of the universe, she would not be able to handle it. Mia wordlessly followed him as the darkness continued to stretch on and on forever. She had many questions but she thought that it was better if she didn't ask them. Here it is," Kai said as he extended his hand into the darkness at a particular spot. The darkness that was sitting on his shoulder flowed through his arm into the real darkness and came back to his shoulder after a few minutes. This place is also known as the Land of Memories. Like I just said, people die when they are forgotten. Death and his reapers bring the souls here after their bodies are dead. Their memories and souls are trapped in eternal sleep. Some souls break free from that sleep and are reincarnated. Then there are people like you who are forcefully awakened from that sleep," Kai said as he touched the blob of darkness on his shoulder. The world started spinning and everything turned black and white. He and Mia were hovering in the sky whereas the man he had killed was below them, his eyes were completely empty and his body was lifeless. "We are about to see his memories," Kai said as he tapped the man's forehead. The world started spinning once again. This time, he and Mia were standing beside the man who was darting through a crowd of people. A battalion of guards was chasing him. The crowd parted to let the guards through. The man somehow managed to slip past them. These memories will be gone after a while. Your memories are completely soaked by this place and you won't remember anything. That is why newborns don't know anything about the world they are living in. But in the case of people who can reincarnate with memories, they use a spell to bind their memories to their soul, so the second they reincarnate, they can easily get their memories back. Kai explained as the scene changed once again. This time, they were on a ship that was battling beasts while a storm. The sea was actually the huge mass of water that separated the continents from each other. He was from the central continent. He was a measly merchant who sold expired things and spent most of his life with an empty stomach. But one day, he met a group of 60 men who were like him. They wanted to break into the royal treasury to steal the items in there so that they could be rich. He too joined them as he thought that if they succeeded, then they would be reached. But if they failed, they would die. Either way, his life would change either for the better or for the worse. Believe it or not, they managed to break in and collect many riches. While others were collecting stuff like gold, treasures, etc. This man's gaze fell on a set of containers labeled as invisibility pills, heaven transcendence pills, underwater breathing pills, and the last container that held a soul-controlling pill. He took the containers with him and some gold too, with a treasure that his face in front of other people. Kai provided commentary as they watched everything unfold from the man's point of view. They became the most wanted men on the continent and they decided to flee to the western continent. Once they entered the sea, the people from the central continent stopped chasing them as they believed that they will either die because of storms or will be killed by beasts. Their prediction was correct. Their entire journey was full of beasts, but they somehow managed to defeat them using the treasures they obtained from the royal treasury. But after covering about 70% of the distance, a huge storm attacked their ship and beasts kept attacking them. This man hid in a dead beast's body and used an underwater breathing pill to survive. He swam towards the shore for 15 days before he finally reached it. Kai said as they saw the man swimming through the sea. The man had gathered everything he could before escaping from the sea and he sold the items to gain money. That's how he got that pills. But who created them? Mia asked. There is a rumor on the Holy Continent that the royal family has captured an expert alchemist. Apparently, her nickname is the pink-haired alchemy expert. That's Rizia. Kai replied and clenched his fists. Surprisingly, the royal family had written the instructions on how to use the pills. They saw the man sell the soul-controlling pill to the Red Flower sect who used it to control Kiana. They also saw him selling the Heaven Transcendence pills to a group of people. Surprisingly, the group of people were the terrorists Kai had killed in Ryazu City. It looked as though the man didn't tell them about the effects of the Heaven Transcendence pill because otherwise, they won't have taken it. After taking that pill, your cultivation will exceed by a realm, but it will only last for a day before you explode because of the excessive spiritual energy inside you. After they finished watching his memories, Kai and Mia stumbled back to the real world. They stepped outside without speaking anything. Kai stood silently for a minute, his fists still clenched. He then released an angry yell before punching a wall of the house. He continued to punch the house and it tumbled down after a few minutes. I can't rescue her because I don't have the strength to teleport to the central continent. Arg! What should I do? He shouted at the sky and he still looked like he wanted to punch someone. You could try to increase your cultivation. You could also search this continent for another harem member. Mia said gently and squeezed Kai's clenched hands. He slowly opened them and let go of Mia's hands. He took a few deep breaths before his face lit up with a smile. Well, I feel a lot better after that. Now I know where Rizia is and I promise that I will find her. And since the rumor says that she is being held in as a prisoner, I am going to massacre the entire royal family for doing that. Kai said as he cracked his knuckles. But for now, let's focus on things I can do. Let's go check that space gate out. He said and took hold of Mia's hands and they vanished. Chapter 56 Corrupted Space Gate, Chapter Preview. You are listening at novelfull.audio. With a flash of light, Kai and Mia appeared back near the crashed house. I kind of forgot that I don't know where the space gate is. Kai said with a sheepish expression. You know, sometimes, you act like a child. Mia sighed and shook her head in dismay. I don't think you would want to meet me when I am serious because one time, I was serious. And what happened afterwards? Kai trailed off as he got plunged into his memories. What, you destroyed a sect? Or perhaps a palace or a town? Mia started wondering about what Kai could have done. He chuckled at her words, though his laughter was deprived of any humor. I destroyed an entire planet. He said slowly and Mia gasped. And in case you were wondering about the planet I destroyed, it was the realm of fairies. Kai said and jumped down into the sea. He didn't get wet but the feeling of cool water running across his body was relaxing. But I thought that the planet got destroyed because multiple suns exploded at once. Mia thought. The destruction of the fairy realm was a major gossip topic in the upper realms. Many believed that the sun goddess destroyed the fairy realm because she had a grudge against them. And honestly, it was kind of expected. Every single fairy was killed during the planet's destruction and nothing of the planet remained as it had been burned off to dust. But when the fairies were alive, they were the most hateable creatures alive. Fairies were not some winged babies who came at night to collect your teeth and give you a gold coin. Nor were they some wish-granting lunatics. They were cruel and wicked and were absolute sadists and masochists. They enjoyed it when humans suffered. They kidnapped mortals and then brought them to the fairy realm to torture them and they enjoyed it. The fairies were hated by almost everyone, except for those who were like them. So when they died, almost every realm jumped up in joy. Many even threw parties to celebrate their destruction. Maybe we should go and check the place where I fell. Kai suggested as he jumped back on the land. It was an impressive sight to watch as he jumped 100 feet straight in the air and that was no joke. He took Mia's hand and they disappeared. He teleported them to Ryazu City, which was surprisingly near his crashing site. He then teleported south of there. This is the exact spot. Kai said as they appeared in the forest where Kai had crash-landed after falling for 16 years. This was also the place where he first met those cultivators from the southern continent. At that time, Kai had to run away from them because he wasn't sure about his power. However, afterward, when he had checked his powers, he had teleported back to obtain his revenge. Unfortunately, they had vanished. Kai, are you sensing that? Mia suddenly said as a dark wave of energy spread through the entire forest. It can't be. I know that form of energy. Kai said in a grim voice and started walking towards the west of the forest as though the power was calling out to him. A rank 4 camouflaging formation created by Heaven Spirit Realm's formation masters. Kai muttered as they reached a cave. He waved his hands and the formation parted away. A huge black swirling portal-like object came into view. It was about 5 feet long and 8 feet wide. The vibe coming from it was clear. Touch me and you will be fucked up for your entire life. That's not just any space gate. That's a corrupted space gate. Kai whistled slowly as he stepped forward to examine it. But how can a corrupted space gate be here? No, first of all, how was a space gate created on this planet in the first place? Mia asked as she frowned at the space gate. This gate was not linked to the southern continent at all. Its real destination was supposed to be the central continent. And if what I am saying is correct, then the space gate on the southern continent was also connected to the central continent. This gate was never made for travel between any continents, except for the central one. In the past, before its corruption, if you would enter this, then you would come out of the space gate present on the central continent. And that space gate must have been connected with 4 other space gates that were present on every continent. Kai explained as he touched the outlines of the black portal. That still doesn't answer the question. Who created this in the first place? Mia asked, her face full of frustration. The only thing I know is that someone from the upper realms created this. He said. Well, that sucks. Mia sighed. We can't even enter the southern continent as this space gate is corrupted. Kai sighed too. What will happen if we enter it? Mia as her eyes lit up. She carefully reached forward and touched the edges of the space gate. Shockingly, it started moving up her skin, entirely covering her hand up to her elbows. It might have covered her entire body, but thankfully, Kai destroyed it. Every time someone used this, they lost a part of their soul to this gate. The more it was used, the more it started craving souls. Now, if someone enters it, their soul would be sucked instantly, thus leaving them soulless. Meaning that they would either be brain-dead morons or people who don't feel anything or something else entirely. Honestly, everyone has a different reaction when they lose their soul. Kai finished his explanation before his hands lit up with black flames. You said if someone enters it, they lose their soul. What would happen if you entered it? Mia asked in a slow voice, and Kai extinguished his flames. I would be able to cross it without any problem, and I can also take you with me. Kai asked and raised his eyebrows at her. What if there is a harem member on that continent? And what if there is a clue on the person who created this? She raised her own eyebrows. You want to explore the southern continent, don't you? Kai laughed before taking hold of her hand. Both of them jumped into the portal and their surroundings blackened. A purple shadow moved inside the darkness. Where its eyes should have been, there were only empty eye sockets. Its face was completely blackened and a mouth opened up to reveal a set of sharp fangs. That's a creature formed by sucking on all those human souls. Kai explained to a confused Mia. Souls contain pure energy and they gave a person life. If someone sucked that energy, would they too gain life? It was quite a mystery that Kai himself had researched on. In his entire lifetime, he had only seen 8 corrupted space gates, the one they were inside was the 9th one. Out of the 8 corrupted ones, 3 had real manifestation like the half-human creature in front of them. Don't even think about it. Kai warned the creature, but it didn't listen and lunged at him, trying to eat his neck. Why doesn't anyone listen to what I say? He said out loud before swatting the creature away with his right hand. It flew a good 400 meters away before it was knocked unconscious. Nobody listens to you 'cause you are like a child. Mia said in a disapproving voice as Kai just shook his head. I cannot destroy this creature without destroying the space gate, as both of them are being powered by the souls. I will deal with him after our journey on the southern continent. Kai said as he snapped his fingers and a gap appeared in the black wall. Kai and Mia jumped into the gap and they gracefully landed on land. The sun was beating down on them and the entire place was extremely hot. Well, that's why you don't reincarnate, or in my case, fall on the southern continent. It's too damn hot and you might as well die before you could cultivate. Kai sighed as he removed the cloak he was wearing. He then removed his jacket and rolled up the sleeves of his shirt. Kai's golden white skin was made visible. He flexed his arms and his muscles moved along with it. Just remove your robes and jacket and you are summer ready. Kai said to Mia as she dropped her robes and jacket on the floor. She was left standing in her black tank top and shorts. Did Kiana lose her soul too as she and that mustache guy came here? Mia asked as she summoned some of her ice and held out her hand in front of Kai. Her soul was bound with the mustache dude's soul, so that creature was only able to suck the mustache guy's original soul. The bounded part of his soul was still merged with Kiana's soul, so he was able to control her. However, his control became less and less effective with time. He explained and took out a strawberry syrup bottle from his pendant. Mia created 2 ice cones and drenched them in strawberry syrup as she handed one of them to Kai while sucking on the other one. "Shall we begin our explo?" Kai said as he finished his cone but stopped speaking as he saw a huge mass of flames rippling around him. "Sarah, what is happening?" he asked as the flames died down and Seraphina the Phoenix made her appearance. But before she could answer, Kai's eyes started glowing red and he fell on the ground, his hands holding his head. "It's her, Kai. It's her," Sarah slowly said as her eyes, too, started glowing. Chapter 57 The Ruler of Fire Spirits, Chapter Preview. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Kai's body rose 5 feet in the air, his limbs hanging limp in the air. His eyes turned flame red as a red ball of energy shot out of his body. It traveled at an incredible pace and faded after a while. Kai's entire body relaxed and he gracefully landed on the ground. "What the hell just happened?" Mia shouted as she looked from Sarah's almost tearful face to Kai's blank face. That was a soul and not just any soul. It was her soul, Sarah said and flapped her wings happily. Mia was even more confused and she raised her eyebrow at Kai. It was Mariel's soul. "She is the ruler of fire spirits," he said quietly as he looked around to see where they were. They were on a beach, or rather, an abandoned beach, as no one was around for miles. The sun was pouring down on their skin and wherever they were, they knew that it was hot. "Now I know how you woke up in the forest without any memories and all that. You didn't have your soul. But what you just saw was only half a soul. Half a soul is worse than a full soul or no soul at all," Kai said in a definite voice after a few minutes. "Why is that?" Sarah and Mia asked at the same time. A soul keeps you, or in other words, gives you everything that makes you what you are. Its absence affects everyone differently. Some become cruel monsters as they will not feel anything, whereas some will go brain dead and will stop thinking and will be just alive. And then there are some who will become mindless zombies who will do anything you ask. But with half a soul, you start feeling things, but not things like love, compassion, loyalty, etc. Instead, you will only feel the dark emotions inside you and will thus turn into a deadly tyrant. You will kill anything and everything that's in your way, or you will just kill them because they annoy you. Without the balance of light, the dark emotions will completely control you and you will be its pawn. Kai said in a grim voice and Mia's eyes darkened. "My harem souls are tied to me. It looks as though every single one of my lovers born on this planet didn't have their soul when they were born. I appeared about a year after your births and half of your souls were released from my body whereas the other half stayed with me. What happened right now was the perfect example for my explanation. This guarantees that I have to be near them so that they could receive the other half of their soul. But in your case, since I didn't touch the planet's ground and was not considered alive till then, I didn't feel your soul detaching from me. And since I was near you, you still received the other half of your soul. The thing I don't know is the distance that is required to do this. I was in the sky for 16 years and I think your soul was released on the 15th year." Kai finished his explanation and dismissed Sarah. "So this means that I turned into a brain-dead girl who just kept roaming here and there until I received my soul," Mia said with a short laugh. "And one more thing is, why did you not have the other half of your soul? Which brings us to the question, who kept you alive and why? But one thing at a time. Let's go and find Mariel," Kai said and started flying. Mia too started hovering in the air and Kai used a cloaking formation on them. "Can you feel her as all of us are connected to you?" Mia asked as they flew southwest from their current location. "I am not able to pinpoint her location. I can only sense her direction, and the closer I reach to her, the stronger the signal gets," Kai said as they kept flying. They saw many towns, villages, farms, and cities pass below them as they kept flying. After an hour of it, Kai suddenly stopped and gazed at a very huge city in front of them. A huge red palace stood in the center of it and a symbol of a phoenix stood on top of it. This was the royal palace of the southern continent, as the royal palace of the western continent had the symbol of the white tiger. And she just had to be a princess. Those people I first met were definitely being ordered by her, Kai said as they hovered over the palace. Well, I have a score to settle with those guys. Let's go and raid a palace full of soulless people, he said, and torched the palace with normal fire. Screams were heard from the palace and people started running outside. Cultivators that had the water element tried to extinguish the flames, but since it was Kai who used those flames, it was a futile attempt. Are we going to reveal yourselves, or are we just going to kidnap her and take her with us? Mia asked the two most obvious plans that came to her mind. The first method is too stupid and the second one is too cowardly. We will instead do a little bit of acting, Kai said with a grin as he told his plan to Mia. She would not call this the best plan she had ever heard, but she had to admit, it was a plan that will definitely work. Hey, who are those people? Someone from the crowd below said, and everyone gasped when they saw 10 masked people flying through the air. Since only Heaven's Spirit Realm cultivators were able to fly, the people gathered below knew that all these cultivators were in the same realm. The crowd panicked and people started running. One of the hooded figures threw a ball of flame towards them, and just when it was about to hit the surface, Kai appeared in front of them and saved the day. Kill them, Mia, he shouted as Mia appeared behind the hooded people. Ice emerged from her body and she threw spears made from it at them. As soon as the ice touched their bodies, it spread instantly over their entire body and they were frozen alive. Mia then proceeded to shatter the ice and thus, killed them all. Who were they? A commanding voice was heard and an 18-year-old girl appeared in front of Kai and Mia, who was now hovering above the crowd. Is that her? Mia asked Kai with a spiritual message. Yeah, that's Mariel. Kai and stared at the girl's appearance. Knee-length flowing blonde hair and flaming golden eyes. Mariel, the ruler of fire spirits, was standing in front of Kai and Mia in royal red robes etched with the phoenix symbol near the heart, just like the western continent's white tiger symbol. Who were those people and who are you? Mariel said in a threatening voice and started flying in the air. She is already at the heaven spirit realm, whereas I was crawling in the sky spirit realm. Mia asked as though she was scammed, and in reality, she was scammed. Unlike you, she is currently linked with the phoenix spirit of this world, and her cultivation is boosted because of that. Kai replied before giving Amber a small bow. Your Highness, my name is Kai and this is my partner Mia, and we are from a hidden society known as the FBCI. Its full form is the Federal Bureau of Cultivators Investigation, and those people who my partner just killed were part of a huge criminal syndicate known as the CIA, cultivators interested in action. Members of our organization have been spread throughout the planet to search for the CIA and exterminate them as they plan to take over the entire world. They were on the western continent before they suddenly vanished. Our investigation led us to finding a portal that teleported us from there to here. But we found out that those guys were careless in their planning, as though they had completely changed. That's how we tracked them to here and killed them, Kai said as Mariel's face turned into a thoughtful expression. She called for a few people and started discussing things with them using spiritual messages. Whereas Mia was trying hard to control her expressions and maintain a neutral face. But Kai's words had confused her so much that it was almost impossible to control her expressions, almost. FBCI and CIA. What the hell are those? Mia couldn't take it anymore and asked Kai. That's something I found out after taking a peek at another universe. The original names were FBI, for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and CIA, for the Central Intelligence Agency. I just changed it a little and voila. We managed to fool them, Kai replied. As you might have guessed, those clones were created by Kai so that he and Mia could investigate what the southern continent wanted with the western continent while trying to help Mariel recover her memories. So let me get this straight, you guys work for a hidden society that works undercover to kill rogue cultivators like the people you just killed? Mariel suddenly asked as she pointed at Mia, who just nodded. Well, that's understandable, and I have to admit, your society has done well to stay under our radar for so many years. Mariel said with an impressed look which made Kai frown on the inside. You are too humble, your highness. Kai said with a disarming fake smile while sending a spiritual message to Mia. That was way too easy. They are planning something. We have to figure out what that is before. Well, nothing can happen to us, so what's there to worry about? He said, and Mia looked almost horrified, but she slightly nodded after hearing that. Some might say that Kai was being too arrogant and ignorant, but in reality, that was the confidence Kai had in himself and her. Please come and stay with us in our palace, or what is left of it. But beware, if you try to do anything funny or suspicious, well, let's just say you will definitely not like us when we are angry. Mariel said with a smile that made chills appear on everyone else's backs. But Kai just gave her an evil smile before opening his mouth to say, I would like to see what will happen if we do overstep our boundaries. He said with a dangerous glint in his eyes, and the place was entirely silent. Chapter 58 The Adventures of a Sizzling Dragon Exploring an Ice Cave, R.18, Chapter Preview. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Author's note. I have changed Amber's name to Mariel, who is a goddess of fire. Thank you Sue_D_NYMN for suggesting this name. You are an interesting person. Mariel laughed and entered her half-burnt palace. Why are you calling her, Her Majesty? Isn't she a princess? Apparently not. I searched some people's memories and it looks as though she was crowned the queen a year ago. Her parents, the king and queen, disappeared mysteriously, and since she was the only child they had, she became the queen. But even before that, she was a tyrant and controlled that soulless army that consisted of someone named Elder Jean, who was at the third stage of Heaven's spirit realm when I met him in the past. Kai explained to Mia as they walked into the royal palace, the guards flanking them on both sides. The inside of the palace was mostly covered in red or orange. It looked as though the cultivators on this planet practically worshipped the 5 elemental spirits. We will have dinner after an hour. Till then, you can bath and rest in our guest room. Mariel said as they appeared in front of a room that was situated in an empty hallway. Kai and Mia entered the room and Mariel and her troop of guards left the hallway. The first thing Kai did after that was to create a soundproof barrier so that no one could hear them. I am thinking they are going to poison our food. But unfortunately, that wouldn't work on me. As for you, your permanent ice should release the effects of the poison. He said as he stretched his body. I am going to take a shower. He said after a while and went to the bathroom. When he returned, he saw Mia perched up on the bed with her hands on her clothes. She quickly stripped down to her underwear and gazed at Kai with an amused look. It's been quite a long time since I had sex with you. What do you say about now? She asked him as she held up her breasts using her hand. Well, let's take it slowly. Kai said with a lopsided grin and swiftly moved towards the bed. He appeared behind Mia and slowly grabbed hold of her breasts that were bound by her bra. He slowly touched them, tracing the nipples with his fingers. Mia moaned as Kai slowly juggled them with his hands. He unhooked her bra and let the straps fall from her shoulder. Kai then grabbed her bare breasts with his hands before squeezing hard. Immense waves of pleasure spread through Mia's entire body and liquid started to flow out of her pussy. Kai viciously groped her breasts, sometimes pinching the nipples. He then slowly turned her body towards him and started sucking on her breasts. Ah, she moaned at the sensation of Kai sucking on her breasts as she surrendered her entire body to him. He started traveling down while leaving behind a trail of kisses. He kissed the underside of her breasts, her flat stomach, and he finally reached in front of her pussy that was covered up by a wet panty. Kai removed her panties and Mia stretched her legs apart so that Kai could get a better view. He traced the outlines of her pussy with his tongue and her whole body trembled. He inserted his slippery tongue inside her cave and started tasting her inner walls. Just as Mia was about to reach her climax, Kai suddenly licked her clitoris, which made her come directly into Kai's mouth. He sucked every single drop of it before going back in. After savoring her pussy for a few minutes, he stepped back as Mia panted a little. It looked as though being in a mortal body had reduced her endurance because the previous Mia would have not started panting unless a month or two had passed by. But before she could catch her breath, Kai leaned in for a kiss. He intertwined her tongue around his tongue as his hands started to stimulate her pussy once again. Mia's hands traveled down to his rod that was still covered by his clothes. But as soon he felt her touch, he stepped back and dropped his clothes on the ground in 2 seconds flat. Mia then grabbed hold of his dick and used her fingers to gently stroke it. She then used her tongue to touch the tip of it as she dropped some saliva on his dick. She then licked his entire cock, from the shaft to the tip before swallowing it in one quick motion. As for Kai, the feeling of his dick surrounded by Mia's warm mouth as her tongue licked his rod was heavenly. He didn't just dual cultivate because he wanted to increase his cultivation or sometimes. He was a dual cultivator because he truly liked it. Kai started thrusting his cock inside Mia's mouth as she blowed him. Saliva started dripping out of her mouth as Kai's cock disappeared and reappeared rapidly. After a few minutes, Kai's rod suddenly grew more harder as he released his yang qi inside Mia's mouth. Unlike the last time they had cultivated, Mia successfully swallowed every last drop of his yang qi. He then gently pushed her down and grabbed his ever-hard rod. He slowly entered her cave till he touched the end of it. Mia's face transformed into an ecstatic expression. He then started thrusting her with incredible force as electric currents went through her whole body. He hammered into her with incredible force as her walls clinged tightly to his rod. Mia's eyes darkened and she moaned loudly as she once again climaxed. Phew! That pant was good. Mia said between deep breaths as Kai rolled beside her on the bed. But that was just the starting. She said again in a cheerful voice before she raised her body on top of Kai's dick. Her hands went to her wet pussy as she slowly started lowering herself on top of his dick. She guided it inside her slippery entrance and moaned whenever it hit a good spot. After Kai's rod was completely swallowed up by Mia's cave, she grinned at him. Kai suddenly felt an odd feeling around his penis, an odd cold feeling. Suddenly, her cave started freezing up and ensnared Kai's dick completely with ice. However, it was quite pleasurable and relaxing. Well, that feels good, but now, let me show you what I can do. Kai said as he lifted Mia off his dick. He then slowly started lowering her back again, but this time, something was different as Mia moaned the second the head of his penis entered her cave. Kai's dick was extremely warm like a dragon's flames. He then pushed it inside her cave and broke through her ice-cold walls with his sizzling dick. Let's see who wins, my sizzling dragon or your sub-zero caves. Kai said with a grin as he pulled Mia on top of his chest and spread her legs apart. He then started thrusting her in the position as her breasts slid up and down his chest, the nipples tracing down his skin. Her arousal juices dripped around his cock as he continued to thrust her. The sounds of flesh hitting against flesh, Mia's moans, and the trembling of the bed echoed around the entire room, mixed with the smell of sex. Kai thrusted her more harder than before as he was about to release his yang qi inside her. Ah, Mia also moaned loudly as she reached her own climax and yin qi broke out from her pussy. Kai also released his yang qi inside her as hot cum shot out of his dick. After filling her up, he removed his shaft that was dripping wet with 2 different kinds of juices. A mixture of both juices continued to come out of her pussy before it gradually slowed down. She quickly cultivated the yang qi and reached the 5th stage of the heaven spirit realm. Please come outside in 10 minutes as the dinner is ready. A guard yelled from the outside and Mia formed a disappointed expression. We will cultivate later on, so don't be too depressed. Kai chuckled as her face lit up. She slowly lowered herself as she sat on her knees to reach Kai's dick. She licked it clean using her tongue until it was completely clean. She stepped back with an approving expression and wore her clothes as Kai wore his own clothes. Well, let's go and eat a dinner that will definitely be poisoned, Kai said in a cheerful voice before he and Mia opened the door and went outside, leaving the room just as it was. The smell of sex and a mixture of juices forming a puddle on the bed was still left there as Kai didn't bother up cleaning someone else's room. When the servants will come here to clean the room, they will be in for a surprise. I gotta say, compared to my first R.18 chapter, this one made quite the punch. And as I always say, use a blanket while reading this or who knows what will happen. Anyways, hope you enjoy the chapter. See ya. Chapter 59 All of you will die at the hands of the thing you worship. Chapter preview. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hello readers. This is the author here and I have successfully rewritten the entire novel. I changed many things in the first 10 or so chapters, but after that, I only had to correct the grammatical errors and spelling mistakes. I just want to thank you all for patiently waiting, and I am happy to say that there will be daily uploads from now on. I hope you continue reading this novel. Let's start the chapter. The entire royal family was gathered in the dining hall where a huge dining table stretched on with 20 chairs, 18 of which were occupied. Mariel was sitting at the head of the table and a familiar person was standing behind her. It was none other than Elder Jean. When Jean saw Kai walking up to the table, he suddenly froze. What's wrong, Jean? Mariel said as she frowned at his sudden reaction. I am well associated with him. In fact, he even kicked me once when I was investigating the CIA. Kai said with a malicious grin before he appeared in front of Jean. He punched him in the stomach with full force and Jean flew back like a doll as he crashed on the wall. Jin's body slumped down on the ground and he plunged into unconsciousness. Why did you do that? Mariel shouted as guards approached Kai. Relax. He is just unconscious. I will wake him up. Kai said with a yawn and snapped his fingers. Jin's eyes flew open and he stood up as he brushed the dust off his clothes. He then stared at Kai, the others following his example also stared at him. The scores settled, he said with a smile and took one of the 2 empty seats. Mia also reached forward and took the chair beside him. The table was full of delicious food and Kai picked up some spiritual meat for himself. This meat was from spiritual beasts and it increased a little bit of your cultivation. He delicately eats it while Mia picked up some ice cream for herself while Mariel smiled at them. She had poisoned every single item on the table and every member of the royal family present there had taken the antidote before eating the food. She was now waiting for Kai and Mia to be paralyzed as the poison she used numbed every part of their body below their neck. But nothing happened and Kai and Mia ate to their heart's content. After that, both of them stood up before Kai snapped his fingers and everyone inside the palace was teleported outside. That's for poisoning our food, he said with a grin and conjured a ball of black flame. He threw it at the palace and it burned down to nothing. Gasps were heard everywhere as the royal palace burned down too and people stared at Kai and Mia. You really thought I wouldn't find out about that poison, and other than that, I owe you guys for welcoming me on this planet, Kai said while he appeared behind Mariel. He touched her forehead and she fell unconscious. He then teleported back to stand beside Mia. I will kill you. Elder Jean went into rage mode when he saw Kai holding Mariel and he and the others attacked him. But Kai didn't even bat an eye in their direction as he snapped his fingers. Every single person present there froze on their spot. He then teleported Mia, Mariel, and himself back to the space gate while the people of the southern continent unfroze. Elder Jean remembered that Kai and the others had come from the western continent and he flew towards the portal with the other royal guards following him. But they wouldn't be able to catch up with the trio as they were already at the space gate. What are you going to do to her? Mia asked as she stared at the swirling black corrupted space gate. I have to use the true mind pill on her so that she could recover her memories, but the last time I created it, I fell unconscious for 4 months. It will take me 8 whole months before I will be able to create another one. Kai sighed. He suddenly remembered the luck-consuming seal that was sealing Mia's memories. He then touched Mariel's forehead and was surprised to see that her memories were blocked by a different seal. 1 week seal. It's a seal that can be broken if a person doesn't cultivate for a week. He said and smiled at Mia, who understood what he meant. They only had to keep Mariel asleep for a week and her memories would return. After that, they entered the space gate. The black creature once again tried to attack them, but it was once again defeated by Kai. The trio landed on the western continent and Kai teleported back to the sect. I will come back after a few days. Kai suddenly said to Mia before he teleported back to the space gate, leaving her behind with a confused expression. She then remembered that Kai had said that he would destroy the space gate after their return. She just sighed and took the unconscious Mariel to her house. Whereas Kai appeared on the southern continent through the space gate. He scanned at the massive army coming towards him. Elder Jean was leading the army and he had a high-tier divine grade sword with him. The army only consisted of Jin's loyal followers. You are pretty brave to come here alone. We will first kill you and then attack the western continent. Jean said with an evil grin as he thought Kai was stupid. I could kill you all with a snap of my fingers, but since you influenced Mariel so much, all of you will die at the hands of the thing you worship. Kai said in a cold tone as Jean gasped. He had found out that Jean and his little group of followers were the ones who had killed the previous king and queen. The ancestor of the southern continent died when the vermilion bird chose Mariel. After that, the royal family became a little vulnerable and Jean struck at that moment. He influenced Mariel to do many things, including forcing her to poison Kai and Mia's food. Because of this, Kai was angry at Jean and his followers. He summoned Sarah and let her open her wings freely. Jean and his followers gasped loudly when they saw that Kai had the vermilion bird with him. He took out his black sword and touched Sarah with it. She was completely swallowed by the sword and the sword started burning with hot orange flames. Kai swung the sword in a horizontal arc as flames shot out of it. Flames danced around in a circle as they struck the nearest group of cultivators. They burned alive as the army started to move backward. But Kai didn't let them walk away as he released Sarah from the sword. She burst forth with her shining orange wings as flame danced around her body. She lurched forward with her wings spread out. Cultivators turned to ash as soon as the wings touched their bodies. Tornadoes made of fire sprung up as Sarah released a battle cry. Terrified cultivators were running around, screaming their heads off. Sarah and Kai suddenly stopped everything as their eyes started to glow. Blue flames surrounded Sarah's body and Kai's usual black flames surrounded his hands. They threw flames at the enemies and huge walls made from their flames surrounded their enemies. The flames started to close upon themselves and the cultivators inside burned to death. He however let Jean escape from the 4 walls and he watched his followers burn to death. He lost his mind and attacked Kai. Kai blocked the sword attack with his own sword and Jin's sword shattered. He was so shocked to see that a divine-grade treasure broke so easily. Kai flicked his finger and a cut appeared on Jin's face. Ling Chi, also known as death by 1,000 cuts. It's a bloody way of execution where the person is killed because of numerous cuts on their body. It's a painful way to die and you will experience it firsthand. The only difference is that I will cut you 10,000 times. He said to a confused-looking Jean and flicked his finger at Jean. Numerous cuts started to appear on his body and Jean screamed in agony. For the next half an hour, Jean continued to scream before he finally died after 1,000 cuts appeared on his body. Kai snapped his fingers and the remains disappeared. He dismissed Sarah before looking at the corrupted space gate. He entered the space gate and stared at the black creature who was glaring at him. He snapped his fingers and every exit in the space gate closed upon itself. You will help me break through to the Imperial Spirit Realm, Kai said with a grin and moved forward. Chapter 60 The Imperial Spirit Realm, Chapter Preview. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Kai leaped forward and grabbed the throat of the creature. It struggled to free itself from his grip, but it was a futile attempt. Kai slammed the creature into the ground of the space gate and knocked it unconscious. He then sat in a cultivation pose and started focusing. The air inside the space gate started to darken as he started to suck the energy present inside the space gate. Souls contained large amounts of energy which could be used to make multiple breakthroughs. However, if you don't absorb this energy perfectly, you might explode because of it. But Kai knew how to absorb it easily, and that's what he was doing. With the help of these souls, he would be able to advance to the Imperial Spirit Realm. The darkness present around him started to enter his body. He suddenly opened his eyes as they started to glow. Pure balls of light shot inside the space gate and entered Kai's body. He consumed them one by one as the darkness inside the space gate started to vanish. The creature finally woke up and growled in pain as his energy started to fade because Kai was absorbing the souls that created the creature. The space gate became a transparent place where one side showed the southern continent whereas the other showed the forest on the western continent. The creature was now almost half dead as his body was fading away. Kai stared at his body before the creature started to enter Kai's body. Kai's body started emitting a purple glow as the spiritual energy from the souls gave him the push to break through to the Imperial Spirit Realm. He slowly started levitating in the air as cracks started to appear in the space gate. A huge wave of energy was released as he advanced to the first stage of the Imperial Spirit Realm. The space gate shattered on both the sides as waves of energy traveled for a few kilometers before disappearing. Since Kai entered the space gate through the southern continent, he ended up on the western continent. He glanced around and saw that everything within a 2-kilometer radius had turned to ash. He stretched his body a little before teleporting back to the sect where a new drama was awaiting him. As soon as Kai disappeared, Mia had to drag an unconscious Mariel back to her house, which was difficult. After reaching halfway to her house, she gave up on dragging Mariel and summoned a cot made from ice. She tossed Mariel on top of it and the cot started to levitate. The ice suddenly started to sizzle as Mariel's eyes flew open. She didn't say anything and just attacked Mia with a hot ball of fire. Mia just sighed and threw an ice spike at the fireball. Much to Mariel's shock, the fireball froze because of the ice and fell on the ground and shattered. Unmeltable ice, Mia said with a shrug as she hit Mariel on the neck and thus knocked her unconscious. The next time Mariel woke up, she was tied to a bed, and chains made from ice were binding her body. She tried to destroy them with her flames, but she was not able to do it. In the southern continent, no one was able to withstand her flames. Be it fire, water, earth or any other type of attack, her flames always ruled over them. But now, her flames didn't even scratch the surface of the ice that was binding her. "Oh, you are awake," Mia said as she came out of the bathroom. Her ice-colored hair were still wet and were hanging on her right shoulder as she gazed at Mariel in amusement. "Where am I and what have you done to me?" Mariel asked in a gruff voice as she thought that Mia wouldn't answer her. But surprisingly, Mia did answer her. "You are on the western continent and this house is a part of the Blue Moon Sect's core court. You already know my name, so I don't think you need to know anything else about me. Other than that, the reason your flames are not able to melt my ice is that this ice cannot be burned. Nothing can burn or shatter this, well except Kai and probably a few other people," Mia said as she started levitating in the air. "Oh, and where is he?" Mariel said as she glanced around the room. She believed that Mia and Kai were about to PE her or something, but that was of course not true. He is currently destroying that space gate and who knows how long he will take to do it. Till then, you are stuck with me, so it's better that you keep your mouth shut or I will bind it up too. Mia replied in a normal voice as though what she said was just friendly talk instead of being a threat. Mariel closed her eyes and started concentrating. Suddenly, the room's temperature started rising and a deafening cry was heard. A magnificent red phoenix emerged from Mariel's body and stared at Mia with malice before it spread its wings. "Sarah, please take care of this spirit," Mia said loudly as a whooshing sound was heard. A minute later, Sarah appeared in her phoenix form and glared at the opposite phoenix. Both Mariel and her phoenix were frozen in shock as they saw Mia summoning another phoenix. Chirp chirp chirp. Translation: Why are you disobeying the laws of the spirits? I don't know how a phoenix speaks, so I just wrote chirp. 'Cause I am not a spirit bound with the spirit world. Sarah replied as the other phoenix's eyes widened. It stared into Sarah's eyes for a minute before it slightly nodded its head. Chirp. Translation: Yes, you are right. I am not able to sense the mark of the spirit world on you. The phoenix replied. Every spirit was bound to the spirit world and bore a mark that connected them to that place. But since the 5 spirits were Kai's partners, he removed the mark from them. Are you not able to sense her energy? Sarah suddenly asked as she pointed towards Mariel, who was supposed to be the ruler of fire spirits. What energy? The phoenix decided to speak in normal language as it was tired of chirping. The pure fire energy that runs in her veins. Sarah replied, momentarily confused. Every spirit could feel the energy of the spirit rulers, but here, a fire spirit was not sensing the energy of the fire spirit's ruler. Pure fire energy. That's only a myth that the old ones told about some mythical elemental spirits who ruled over the other spirits about 2,000 years ago before they were all killed. I can't believe you think that such myths are true. The phoenix said in a disappointed voice before it vanished in a swirling miniature storm of flames. 2,000 years. Both Sarah and Mia said at the same time and glanced at each other, not sure that they heard the right thing. According to the phoenix, 2,000 years had passed since the elemental rulers had been killed, meaning that 2,000 years had passed since Kai resurrected Mia and the others. Both of them were so stunned that they had to sit down for a minute to digest everything. Mariel, however, was confused by everything she heard. She didn't understand what was happening, but she felt that she had to escape. A plan clicked in her mind and she moved her hands towards the walls. She calmly took a deep breath before releasing 2 fireballs towards the walls. The house caught fire and it started to spread like wildfire. Mia saw this with a cold expression, and if looks could kill, Mariel would be dead by now. Mia just covered the entire fire-covered area with her ice and stopped the fire within seconds. She then looked at Mariel with a creepy grin and tightened her ice around her. Her body was completely chained from head to toe and only her nose was left open for breathing. This continued for 6 days and there were no signs of Kai's return. However, on the 7th day, Mariel cried in pain as flames started to dance over Mia's ice. She dissolved the ice and stared at Mariel, whose entire body was bathed in flames. And that's when Kai appeared in the sect. He teleported at the sect entrance and suddenly felt a huge wave of energy ripple through the air. This energy was strong enough that even Imperial Spirit Realm cultivators won't be able to feel it. The only reason Kai felt it was because he felt his harem mark ignite on Mariel's body. He quickly teleported inside Mia's room and saw that Mariel's body was completely bathed in flames and she rising in the air. It's starting, he said to Mia as she looked at him, and suddenly, the room burst with a brilliant spark of light.